Alrighty boys, Colum from SVG PCs, and today I'm going to be going over why in 2025 there is literally zero reason that you should be buying an NVIDIA GPU unless you're in very specific situations. Unfortunately, we're at a point now where because NVIDIA's stock price is so inflated because of AI, they don't feel like they need to make better products. So what's ended up happening for the 5000 series is they're just too overpriced and the performance is too similar to the last generation. And I say this as somebody who has a NVIDIA 4070 Super in my PC right now. I built that PC in early January of 2024, but if I was to build a PC right now, there would not be an NVIDIA graphics card in it. I'd probably go with something like the 9070 XT. What NVIDIA has done is they've released already obsolete cards. They're releasing 8GB versions of the 5060 Ti, which have significantly lower performance than other graphics cards. They're releasing cards that actually have worse performance to last generation cards for similar price points, like the 4050, which performs worse than the 3060, which came out all the way back in 2021. They have competition from AMD, who have released the 9070 XT that is performing similarly rasterized in certain situations to the 5080, which is nearly double the price in a lot of situations. I have a list here of all the newer RTX cards, and I'm going to point out which ones you should buy in certain situations and which ones you should definitely not buy. We're going to ignore here down because all these cards are too old and irrelevant and you won't be able to buy them new anyway. RTX 4050, zero reason to buy this card because the 3060 outperforms it. You could pick up an either new or used 3060 for less than 250 right now and it will outperform the RTX 4050. Honestly, there's literally zero reason for this card to exist. I don't know even why they made it well, I know why they made it. It's because it's a cash grab, but there's no reason to buy this card. The 4060, yet again, there's no reason to buy the 4060 because it performs so similar to the 3060. It's even downgraded in some ways because it has half the bandwidth, and also there's no 12GB model, so you'd be better off picking up a 12GB 3060 over an 8GB 4060. 4070, now bear in mind I have a 4070 Super. You should not buy the 4070. It performs about 20% slower than the 4070 Super. The 4070 Super performs the exact same as the 5070, and the 5070 has an inflated price right now. So instead of this card, what you should be getting is a 9070 XT, which is actually cheaper than a 5070, and it performs significantly better, even better than the 5070 Ti in a lot of situations. 4080. Now, if you can pick up a used 4080 in some situations, it may make sense, but because it performs so similar to the 9070 XT, you're just better off going with the 9070. 4090. If you can pick up a used 4090, 100% do it because it performs so similar to the 5090 but is significantly lower because the release price was lower, and also at this point now it's like 3 years old. You're better off with going with the 4090. 5080, I don't know why this exists. It's basically the exact same as the 4080. The point is, guys, there's a very few certain situations where NVIDIA is okay. 60 class cards on sale, a 3060 12GB on sale is your go-to for around 250-ish. You can pick those up on Amazon for 250 right now. Second hand, you can buy an NVIDIA card if you want to go to the second hand market, but most people don't want to do that. And thirdly, the 5090 and 4090, AMD doesn't offer any sort of competition in this price range. So if you got hella money, like price of a whole brand new PC on a graphics card kind of money, stupid money, then you don't really have any option other than the 5090. So go ahead and get that. If you stream or do content creation or any sort of video editing, or you use apps like Blender, you're better off getting an NVIDIA card, unfortunately, just because AMD doesn't have an NVANC engine in it. It does have their own proprietary version, but it's just not as good, unfortunately, right now. So if you're into any of this kind of stuff, unfortunately, you're stuck with NVIDIA. I personally have the 4070 Super, and when I bought that on launch day at launch price in January of 2024, it was, I wouldn't say a good deal because it had 12GB of VRAM. If I had 16, it would be all right. But in and around that point, you're kind of stuck with used 4070s if your price is around 500-ish. If your budget is under 300, you're just better off buying secondhand unless there's a good sale. If you want to buy new over the $300 budget and less than kind of 700, 800-ish, if you're closer to 500, you're better off getting a 9060 XT. If you're above 500, get a 9070 XT. Don't bother with the non-XT versions. They're just cut down, and for the $50 that you save, the performance is significantly worse, so you're better off saving your pennies and getting the XT version. If you need really, really high performance and you don't care about money, obviously go ahead, get the 5090 or the 4090. But the main thing is, guys, do not buy new NVIDIA graphics cards if you really don't need them, because you're basically just encouraging them to continue to release terrible products. Hopefully what we'll see in the future is something similar with AMD versus Intel, where they'll create a really good product like Ryzen and then just take over the market. But we're not seeing that right now. Yeah, you could argue the 9060 and the 9070 XT are making a little bit of a difference, but they're not good enough of a value in comparison to a lot of NVIDIA GPUs to really sway the market. Yes, they are a better value, but not significantly enough, and they're not promoted well enough in order to actually make a real impact on the market. People like us who are building PCs, we need to vote with our wallets so that in the future there will be more competition and NVIDIA will actually go back to creating better products. Honestly, it's looking unlikely because of their stock price being inflated by AI, but the bottom line still stands. Now, you'll probably come at me with the one argument that all these fucking NVIDIA fanboys have, which is, oh, ray tracing's so good, I need ray tracing. You don't need ray tracing. And I've seen it myself because I picked up Cyberpunk recently on the Steam sale. When you enable ray tracing, performance is basically immediately cut in half. This is with a 4080. You're at 114 FPS, right, with ray tracing off. And then you turn ray tracing on, you're at 52. So you're telling me for this difference in visual fidelity, we're going from this to this, looks very similar to me, you're gonna half your frame rate. If you're spending 500 plus on a graphics card, realistically nobody wants to play sub 60 FPS. It doesn't matter how good the lighting or the shadows look, even though the difference is really not that big. You cannot argue ray tracing, because at the end of the day, ray tracing takes up so much of your card's ability to rasterize that it just makes the game significantly worse. The reality is nobody actually plays games with ray tracing on unless you have like a 4090 or up. Chances are that if you have a really expensive graphics card, you're gonna also have a high refresh rate monitor, and you would prefer to play at a higher frame rate because it's so much smoother. Ray tracing technology is just not there. We need to see some sort of progression in ray tracing where it only takes off like 20 FPS and it goes down to 100 instead of all the way down to 50, completely cutting it in half. The ray tracing thing is just not there yet. You can't even argue that. I'll admit to you right now, I bought my graphics card thinking I would use ray tracing. I have not used it once just because of how much performance it cuts from my games. I am not interested in using ray tracing, and I guarantee majority of people who bought their RTX cards thought that they would end up using ray tracing, and then they just didn't, because the difference is pretty much non-existent for half your performance. Bottom line, guys, don't buy a new NVIDIA card in 2025 unless you're super rich. Just don't bother. Vote with your wallet. Column from SVG PCs out.